Okay, ladies and gents, welcome to another review of Carl's Computer Corner in regards to the Dell Latitude 2110. Just want to let you know this here is actually an interesting little netbook. I had actually run into this at one of my local computer stores that I usually go to on a weekly or bi-weekly time. This one here is particularly interesting because way back in 2009, 2010, these netbooks were coming out to populate or to be able to get a niche into the open market as for a sub-compact notebook for either schools, home use, or small businesses where you have training classes and all that. So something like this was a nice little nifty little idea to have around at the time that they did come out. This one here that I had actually picked up, I got it with 2 gigs of RAM and a 160 gig hard drive. It had a rubbery matte finish, which altogether costed me about $110 or so, which was a great deal for a used laptop. One thing I liked about this here, besides the matte finish, was the small, compact size. The only thing that it did not have was a CD or DVD-ROM drive built into it, which was perfectly fine. For what I needed it for it to do was to do basic word processing, Excel spreadsheets, emails, stuff of that nature, and also to use with digital photography as being able to download my photography onto the notebook and also to do some basic video editing. The thing is, with this one here, I can't do the type of editing I would like to do, like on my normal Toshiba A9 that I have for the Tecra. But to be able to just to be able to offload the images and video, which is totally cool with this one. It's using the Atom processor on it, which is a dual core processor. It's running from Intel and the N470, running at 1.83 gigahertz. Like I said, this is a dual core processor, which is a nice little nifty little processor to work with. I never had much of a problem with dual core processors, since most of my machines that I have, like the Precision 530s, are running on dual single core processors. So I'm basically using two physical cores, two physical single core processors on my editing machines. Those ones are using specifically on the Precision 530s Ubuntu Studio, which is a video editing machine running under 32 bits, and on my Tecra from Toshiba, it's running under 64-bit. So I have 64-bit on that and 32-bit on my other machines. Here, as for operating systems, I can also use genuine Windows XP Home Edition, or Home Basic 32-bit, Windows Vista 32, Starter Home Edition Premium. The one I would not suggest is using uh, from from Microsoft is Windows 8. For the simple fact is that the resolution on it is only 1024 by 600, and usually for something like that, it requires 1024 by 768 in 64 bits. Now, what I've done here is I've gotten myself the Home Premium Edition, not the 32 bits, but the 64 bits. For the simple fact is I'd taken a look through CPU World or CPU-world.com and actually taking a look here for the Atom processor itself, and it's actually a 64-bit processor. So basically, you're running 64 bits on a 32-bit machine. So that's running quite fast for its size, as well as just to let you know. Again, I'm running with the 1024 by 600 anti-glare LED display on it. So that's what I have. There's also an option with a touchscreen on it, which this one didn't have when I got mine. There was an option for this for most of the screens in case you want to, in case you need to tap on the screen itself, or if you were an artist using Ubuntu Linux as an example, or any drawing applications like a tablet that required that type of touch or feel on the screen. Again, this one here by default came with more likely an 80 or 160 gigabyte hard drive. Mine came with a 160 gig hard drive and a 3-cell battery, lithium ion battery. Now the battery that I have on there is a lithium ion, but it's only lasting about 15 minutes due to the fact that the battery is so old on it that I need to switch it out and get a new one. And I can easily pick up a new one at Battery Export, which is a close store to where I live, and I can easily pick up one there to replace it. So it's still a very good little machine, even if it's used to be used as for a home PC for light duty work, like for your YouTube account, your basic, video editing, Excel spreadsheet, uh, your emails, stuff like that. It's a great small size for 110 bucks, and I can't argue with it for the price that I got it for. And it's a really good little machine to work with, and it's also good to do homework on as well. As well as you can see here, as for hard drive storage, you can use a 64 gig SSD or up to a 250 gigabyte 720 SATA drive. Now, I think you can go a little higher than that. Most of today's hard drives, SATA wise, for the laptops are already up to 1 gig. My Toshiba Tecra A9, I've already gotten a $100 1 terabyte hard drive, and it works perfectly fine. So I'm quite sure it can easily take a 1 terabyte drive as well. Optional external 8-speed DVD CDRW drive can be used on this version 2.0 for the external drives, because you're basically plugging it in on one of the three USB drives themselves. That there can be easily worked with as well for the external drives. You can even get an external read-write drive for DVD or a Blu-ray. So that's still an option if you want to add a Blu-ray drive to your machine here. As for the operating systems here, they're showing all Windows so far, and as you can see here, there's a version called Ubuntu Linux, which you can basically add, and it's still available. The one thing I would just say about this, if you're used to using Windows, like Windows 7, Windows XP, those ones from Windows, and you're not used to using Ubuntu or Linux, I would stay away from it. If you're interested in working with Ubuntu or Linux, I would say go for it, because it's always a good thing to add into your repertoire of using other operating systems. Because these days, with like Ubuntu as an example, they already come with a bunch of software you can already add into it and have already your needs met. So you can basically load up LibreSoft or LibreOffice as an example for your office suites. You can also download free games and all that through the Synaptic package manager that they have available for all the software, and it's basically point and click through the graphical interface. I'm not going to show that with Ubuntu Linux on this one, due to the fact is I didn't want to take the time of removing the whole thing and reinstalling another hard drive. It's just one of those things I didn't want to do twice. Besides that, it's a good little machine. Let's actually go to the machine itself right after this, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we actually run the machine and take a look at the physical dimensions of it, okay? So let's go and take a look at it right now.
Folks, this is another computing review from Carl here, the Carl's Computing Corner. Today we're going to be talking about this nice little netbook from Dell. It's the Dell Latitude 2110. This happens to be a notebook or a netbook, which is just a subcategory of a notebook. These ones here from Dell, this one specifically, the Dell Latitude 2110, is a subcategory of the actual notebooks, which are running basically the Atom processor in here, running very nicely at 1.83 gigahertz with a minimum of 1 gig of RAM. This one here I actually bought at one of my places that I usually get laptops and a few other things, with 2 gigs of RAM and a 160 gig hard drive. It had already came in with Windows 7 Starter, but I had to take that out, which in many cases I didn't like how they installed it in, because I don't have full control, not even the min rights. So I ended up wiping the hard drive clean and reinstalling fresh Windows 7 Premium Edition on this 64-bit, because the processor here is an actual 64-bit Atom processor in it. It also has a 160 gig hard drive. It runs very nicely on it, and it can go up to Windows 7 64-bit. I have not tried Windows 8.1 or 8.0. I'm not planning to. This one here, I've done a little research also on Dell. This one here, the subnet book, can also run a version of Ubuntu on it, version 9.1 or higher. So you can put any flavor of Linux on here, even Ubuntu, preferably Ubuntu, because Dell had helped out in the Ubuntu area from Conical in getting some drivers for it. So this should work well under the Ubuntu OS branded operating systems here. So let's take a look at some of the side features that we have here. As you can see here, we have the lock. You have your 15-pin out for VGA for an external monitor or projector type. You have your fan space here for the exhaust fan for the processor. USB 2.0, microphone and headset right beside each other, so you can actually use Skype and plug it in close by here for your headphone and microphone, your headset and microphone. And another part here is another fan in the front with an SD card reader. This is a good little feature to have on almost any computer that you need an SD card reader. So if you have a digital camera, as an example, you can import your video and your pictures directly from it. I usually still have on my digital camera the connection to plug it into the USB port on the side, one of these ones here, and still connect it and download it directly. So, but in either case, you can still use an SD card reader here, which makes it easier, I guess. On the other side, we got two more USB port 2.0s. That's a total of 3 right now, and an Ethernet gigabit connections, along with your power connector to charge up the battery, and another lock on the side. Now here, this big black thing in the back, it might not be evidence, but I'll just unlock it here. This here is actually the battery for this. And this here itself, this plastic case on top, could let you put a label on it. So let's say, for example, if you're working in a school, you can label this particular laptop as an example for a lab, or for a company as an example. So that's one way you can go about it. There we go, that's closed up. And the inside itself, let me just get it open. Here we go. Now you may not see it too clearly here, but there is a space here for a webcam that you couldn't put in as an option when you bought it directly from Dell, which is a nice little feature. But here is a standard keyboard, your little not trackball, nice little touchpad here with your left and right mouse keys. Also, one thing to mention as well, there was an option as well for these particular laptops to either be touchscreen or not touchscreen. This one here is not a touchscreen itself, so this is one where you can't touch on the screen itself directly and choose directly on the screen. So that's one thing that is a negative on this, but that's minor. So let me open this here up, turn it on, and get you to see what the BIOS looks like, and then the operating system of Windows 7 on it, okay? Okay, to get into the BIOS here, it's not that hard to do. Let's power it up, and F2. Here we go. Now, as you can see here, it might not be so clear, but it is kind of clear. Here, let me zoom in. Now, what you might see, here we go, using the touchpad to the plus there. System passwords, here we're going into system information. Now, these things are fairly good because they used to be all graphic and not graphic text based. Now they've gone into graphics for the BIOS itself, which I find very useful. Well, different because I'm still used to the old ASCII characters, but that's still okay for me because this here makes it nice and neater, much more clean. For those who are not used to going into the BIOS itself, I'm kind of old school where I like the old ASCII characters, which is okay. But for now, this will have to do. But otherwise, I prefer the old one, but still going with the new school. It's nice and clean. I can't complain. Now, what I am going to do is let's reboot this computer and get into the operating system. There we go. Now this here, I have installed Windows 7 Home Premium Edition, which gives it a little bit more access than the starters kit, which is the default one that came with it. Not many people know this here originally came with 1 gig of RAM when they were first being sold, and now it's 2 gigs. So much for that. I got it with 2 gigs with a 160 gig hard drive, and it runs nice and good. It's a nice small little PC to still work with. The battery would have to be changed out on this. So let me just log in here. I'm going to cut it and I'll be right back. Okay, here I'm back again. So here we go. Just going to log in as normal. Now if I can get the mouse properly seated. There we go. And Home Premium Introductions. Now, like I said, it's a nice little piece, a nice little netbook. It still can be used as for a regular PC at home. The only thing I would have to do is change out the battery, or leave the battery as in, leave it plugged in. One of the two, and it can still use wireless as this one can, or go with what they have is the actual connection on the side, which is the Ethernet connection, and use a 10100 or 10100 or a gigabit connection. Either way, it'll do the same. Now, it's just depending on your type of router that you have, whether you're using a 10100 router or a gigabit router. So that's basically about it here. Again, this is a nice little system with the Atom processor dual core on it, 2 gigs of RAM, 160 gig hard drive, and I'm also running Windows 7 Home Premium along with Microsoft Office. I haven't added any other software to it just for the fact I didn't have a chance to load up any other software, but for something like this, if you're just using it for basic word processing out on the net, doing some just editing some pictures and all that, this should be more than enough. Unless you're really into making heavy-duty editing and all that, I would not suggest something like this to do. For the simple fact is that it takes too much horsepower. This here is something light and easy to work with, and I usually suggest something like this for, for light use, like for word processing, homework, checking out emails, stuff of that nature. This is something that this would be good in, and nothing more than that. Anyhow, this is my little tech review. I give this actually a 10 out of 10 for its size and all that, and I like it very much as an alternate PC to my main ones. Anyhow, that's it for the Carl's Computing Corner for this this Dell Latitude 2010. Come till next time. Bye.